On this episode of Let's Explore This, we are going to be traveling to Brevard. You see, there there is this massive brick building that you need to see. It stands eloquently on a street corner situated along this road, not too far from this spot, in that direction. So, what makes that building right there so special? Well, for starters, in 1994, it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It is from that document where most of the information for this episode will be culled, because there is a lot to be said about this building. This is going to be somewhat of a lengthy episode. In fact, it will be broken into two parts. The first part will delve into the history of the building, and the second part, it will delve into the architecture. As far as interior shots go, well, I do have a lot of footage. You see, I was able to get access into much of the building. Will what I have correspond with what is in the document? We'll just have to see. Photos may still be used. Some historic photos will be included anyway to show you a bit of the past. Furthermore, most of the source material referenced in the document comes from this interview notes that I doubt I can easily locate. Therefore, for those, document footage will have to do. In order to begin our tour of this building, we will have to travel back in time to 1898. You see, it was during that year, on March 20th, that a prosperous merchant and businessman here in Brevard, Nathan Van Buren McMinn, wrote a 3-page letter to his son, John W. McMinn, on the letterhead of his Southern Drug Company. On the third page of that letter, he began his final paragraph. I think I will put a good brick on the corner this fall and save rent. I have 8,000 in the bank and 1,500 in drugs, and can put 5,000 in a house on the corner. $8,000 in the bank in 1898. Wow. Today, in 2024, if my math is correct, that would be just under $3,000. Hmm, that's more money than I have in the bank. I guess I won't be putting up a building anytime soon. Regardless, those terms, good brick and house, are the first references to this 2-story brick building here on the corner of Main and Broad, a building that was erected for McMinn and that has thereafter been known as the McMinn Building. It was the first brick commercial building erected here in Brevard, the seat of Transylvania County. And it was also the second known brick building erected in what was then just a small town, following the construction of the brick courthouse in 1873. For those reasons, for its handsome, well finished construction, and for its location on the town square across North Broad Street from the courthouse, the McMinn Building, it has ever since been a prominent landmark here in Brevard. Because of the continued ownership in the McMinn family to the present, yup, still appearing so today in 2024, the commercial rental building has retained a remarkable degree of integrity and remains little changed to the present. It still continues to house commercial tenants in the first story storefronts and rental offices on the second level. Yes, that does appear to still hold true today in 2024. Not sure about those rental offices up there, but there is the White Squirrel Shop. Hmm. With the loss of the McMinn residence and later hopelessly compromising alterations to John W. McMinn's Ethelwald Hotel, situated diagonally across the town square, the McMinn building survives as the foremost reminder of the family's presence in their community. Nathan Van Buren McMinn, for whom the building was built and whose name it bears to the present, was an important figure in Brevard in the later years of the 19th century until his death at the age of 65. He was born on August 25th of 1836, probably in Henderson County and perhaps in that portion that is now Transylvania County. Reportedly, no one seems to be able to pin down an exact location of his birth. Even Find a Grave fails to list an exact birth site. Anyway, in 1861, a portion of Henderson County and a portion of Jackson County were separated to form Transylvania County. Then, Brevard, named for Revolutionary War hero Ephraim Brevard, would become the county seat. Through his marriage to Elizabeth Lizzie England, McMinn became a part of one of Transylvania County's best known and highly respected families. Elizabeth England was born on October 12th of 1851, the daughter of Alexander England. It appears likely that the marriage occurred in 1870 or 71. The couple's first known child, John William McMinn, was born in 1872. The next year, Nathan McMinn was a witness at the marriage of his kinsman, George W. McMinn, to Mary M. England on Christmas Day. This union further conjoined the McMinn and England families. Members of both families are buried in the same prominent plot in the cemetery at the former Oak Grove Methodist Church in Brevard. Lizzie and Nathan McMinn acquired substantial property in Brevard and in Transylvania County by both purchase and inheritance, jointly and individually. The first purchase occurred in 1873, and they would continue to acquire property until shortly before their deaths in 1898 and 1902, respectively. In the following year, in 1874, the couple's first daughter, Beulah McMinn, was born. There would be at least two additional children born to the couple, Nathan E. McMinn and Mary B. McMinn. Not sure if those two additional children are here being referenced as a twin son and a twin daughter, neither of which appear to have survived. In the absence of a fully developed history of Transylvania County, a complete understanding of Nathan McMinn's role in the commercial life of Brevard remains to be confirmed. However, certain information on the range of his activities can be gleaned from the successive volumes of Branson's North Carolina Business Directory for the years 1884 through 1897. His name first appears in the 1884 edition when he was listed as the sheriff of the county and as a merchant dealing in general merchandise. The dates of his term as sheriff are unknown. However, he is reported to have held the office of sheriff as late as 1887. In the 1890 edition of Branson's North Carolina Business Directory, Nathan McMinn was listed as the proprietor of a manufacturing concern which produced saddles and horses. 6 years later, in 1896, he was cited as the proprietor of the Central Hotel, one of four hotels located in Brevard at that time. The 1897 directory reportedly contains the same listing. The changing roles which Nathan McMinn assumed in his community and the reins of those enterprises suggest something of the parallel movements then afoot in the growing town of Brevard. Although outside capital was responsible for many of the major real estate and industrial projects in Transylvania County, long established local men, such as McMinn, did prosper in related or otherwise service oriented businesses. The history of this late 19th century expansion in the economy of the county and in Brevard is discussed in two historic contexts in the following document. The Historic and Architectural Resources of Transylvania County, North Carolina, circa 1820 to 1941. The contexts are pre-railroad Transylvania County, 1861 to 1894, and early industrialization, 1895 to 1916. Nathan McMinn was an important local figure in this period. As a result, his then new brick building is perhaps the earliest and most intact surviving landmark in Brevard from this turn of the century era of commercial expansion. Earlier, you got to see this photo. Reportedly, it is the McMinn house, likely where he once resided. It is said to date way back to 1886 and reportedly later acted as a hotel. Reportedly, 5 months after writing to his eldest son, McMinn's wife, Elizabeth Lizzie England McMinn, died on August 26th of 1898. She is buried beside her father in the family plot at the Oak Grove Cemetery. It appears likely that Nathan McMinn delayed construction on his new brick building that would come to lie over there on the town square until early in 1899. In that fall of 1899, Nathan McMinn took his son, John William McMinn, into partnership in the ownership of his building. He sold him a one-half dividend interest in the property for $1,500. The property, conveyed by deed dated October 19th of 1899, describes it as being the lot on the corner of Main and East Broad Streets, on which a brick building 75 by 85 is now being constructed, said lot including the said brick building. Now, the reason for McMinn's sale of a one-half interest in the property to his son while the building was under construction appears to be unknown. However, it does seem likely to have had some connection with the formation of the Brevard Banking Company, once located right here at this location. As far as the bank goes, though, it initially had its offices not here, but yes, in the McMinn building. In the deeds of 1902, the building is referenced as just the bank building, and in 1902, John William McMinn was the cashier of the Brevard Banking Company and also the treasurer of both the town of Brevard and its county. This here is an early 1900s photo showing the McMinn building there to the right. As said early on, the McMinn building, it was only the second brick building known to have been erected here in Brevard after the 1873 Transylvania County Courthouse. As the first brick commercial building erected in the county seat, it is important as the senior member of a series of buildings that transformed the commercial heart of Brevard. Yes, Brevard, it went from a cluster of frame stores and houses to a square lined with 1, 2, and 3-story brick stores, hotels, and commercial buildings that you see today, all within a dozen or so years, beginning in 1898. Members of the McMinn family erected two of this series of brick commercial buildings between 1902 and 1904. At present, the identity of the contractor and builder of the McMinn building is unconfirmed. However, it seems likely to have been C. Kilpatrick. In the 1897 edition of Branson's North Carolina Business Directory, there were three such contracting and building concerns listed: J. A. Miller, the Kilpatrick brothers, and P. B. Wilson. Of these three, only the Kilpatrick brothers, C. and J. M., were listed in the 1902 North Carolina yearbook. However, a more specific reason that the Kilpatrick brothers were the likely contractors is that C. Kilpatrick was erecting a second brick building under contract for Nathan McMinn at the time of McMinn's death in the summer of 1902. In the account of the settlement of McMinn's estate dated September 18th of 1903, there is a record of 9 payments that total $1,802.56 made to C. Kilpatrick. The payment for September 6th of 1902 has the explanation notation of contract brick house. Now, yes, I would show the estate record, but a search through the North Carolina archives yielded nothing for the McMinn name from 1902. Maybe I didn't have enough info, or it has yet to be digitized. Regardless, it is believed that the brick house cited in that account is the two-story brick building which adjoins the McMinn building on the west. That two-story building, it is said to replicate the brickwork of the original 1899 building. In contemporary deeds, it is cited as the Nathan McMinn building, differentiating it from the McMinn building on the square. Yeah, I didn't go digging to see if that holds true. However, what I did manage to uncover was this photo of the Farmer's Supply Company, an early inhabitant of that edition. And yes, it can be identified by the two steel columns in the front. Later, it became the home of Celestial Mountain Music, once selling a variety of instruments and music supplies. Today, in 2024, well, this is what this little edition has to offer. Knowledgeable of the local market, Nathan McMinn wisely built a mixed-use building on the square. It provided commodious space for the Brevard Banking Company and merchants on the first story, and on the second story it held offices for the town's increasing rank of professionals and companies. Okay, so here is the building as it looks in 2024. So tell me, those storefronts, do they still look like this? Well, whether they do or not, those three first-story rental storefronts, each 25 feet in width, were covered with typical cast iron fronts manufactured by Mesker Brothers of St. Louis, Missouri. The later first-story rental storefront on the adjoining Nathan McMinn building, that one features a pair of tall cast iron Corinthian columns that flank the entrance. On August 5th of 1902, Nathan Van Buren McMinn died. He was later buried beside his wife in the England McMinn family plot. There, his grave is marked by a variegated marble obelisk erected by the Butler Marble Works at a cost of $700. McMinn died intestate, and his estate was administered by his eldest son and business partner, John William McMinn. The real estate holdings that comprise the real property of Nathan McMinn was surveyed by A. L. Hardin, the county surveyor. Since October 19th of 1899, John William McMinn had held a one-half interest in the McMinn building property. So, at first, I thought the other two mentioned children may have been the twins listed here that did not survive. Now, however, it seems to appear Find a Grave does not list all the children. You see, by the Commissioner's deed of September 18th of 1902, in the division of Nathan McMinn's estate, his one-half interest in the building was equally divided among his other three children, Beulah McMinn Zachary, Nathan E. McMinn, and Mary B. McMinn. They were each allotted a 1/6 undivided interest in the lot at this here corner and the building, which was then called the Bank Building. I'm assuming that so-called Bank Building to be this little here annex to the west of the main building. All in all, the personal property was divided among the four children, and the estate, it was settled by August 18th of 1903. A year later, in 1904, when the new Methodist church was built in Brevard, the McMinn window was given in memory of Nathan and Lizzie McMinn by their four children. So, tell me, folks, where is that window? Is this that church? Has it been moved or rebuilt? Yes, this inquiring mind wants to know. Well, it might want to know, but I have a sneaking suspicion it may possibly be lost. You see, this here is reportedly the first church building complete in all its Gothic glory. It was donated by the Methodist congregation to the Brevard Youth Association when they moved to their new church building. And this building, reportedly, it burned in the early 1960s. The question then is, was that McMinn window ever saved? You know, I don't know, but like his father, John William McMinn, he rose to prominence in his community. There, he served for periods of time around the turn of the century as the treasurer of both Transylvania County and the town of Brevard. He was also the cashier of the Brevard Banking Company, as well as the treasurer of the Brevard Waterworks. Brevard Waterworks. I wonder where that could have been. Not sure. Likely doesn't exist anymore. A few miles south down this road, though, in that direction, you could find the Brevard Wastewater Treatment Plant. I would take you there, but a trek that far is beyond the scope of this episode. Anyhow, following in his father's footsteps as the proprietor of the Central Hotel, John McMinn went on to erect a handsome three-story hostelry circa 1904. It is situated diagonally across the square from the McMinn building. He operated it as the Ethelwald Hotel, so named for his wife Ethel until his death in 1918. For the next 40 years until her death in 1958, Beulah McMinn Zachary, the widow of William Woodard Zachary, was the senior member of the family. Over the course of many years, the shares in the McMinn building were either inherited or purchased, not just by Beulah, but also by her daughter and heir, Elizabeth Zachary Vogler, who died without issue on March 20th of 1993. She was a graduate of the Brevard Institute and of Salem College. In 1940, she received a Master's of Arts from the University of North Carolina. From 1925 until 1941, she was the Dean of Girls at Salem College in Winston-Salem. By the way, the Brevard Institute, it came to be known as the Brevard College, and yes, it does still operate today in 2024. Then, after 1941, she and her husband, H. Harold Vogler, operated Vogler's Jewelers in Winston-Salem. So, yes, this building. Don't go looking for it here in Brevard. But in her will, she went on to bequeath the McMinn building to Karen McMinn Laska, the granddaughter of John William McMinn. From 1898 onward, the McMinn building has been the address of an important roster of commercial enterprises, stores, attorneys, doctors, and other professional people. Waitstill Avery Gash had an office here at the turn of the century, and his stationery is said to have bore McMinn Building as his address. Later, both Robert Lenore Gash and D.L. English, the judges, they had offices here that were convenient to the nearby courthouse. Judge Robert T. Gash, who now manages the building, continues to rent the corner office overlooking the square. Well, he did, as he died in 2009. This document, it does date back to 1994. Yup, that is 30 years prior to when this episode was compiled. Of interesting note, though, is this: the paving of this stretch of North Broad Street in the summer of 1928. Notice, to the right there, that fish pond. That is where Judge Gash's father reportedly once fell in while waving at some ladies in the windows of the courthouse. Wow, who knew there could be some inherent dangers in waving at some ladies? Anyhow, after the Hendersonville and Brevard Railroad failed, it was reorganized as the Transylvania Railroad Company in 1897. This new railroad company, it too had its offices over there in the McMinn building. But folks, do not go looking for any railroad activity today in Brevard. It no longer exists. What you can do, however, is take a stroll through where, once upon a time, a depot was active. The corner storefront here has housed a series of mostly drugstores or pharmacies, while these over here have been the addresses of groceries, restaurants, department stores, and other concerns. In 1994, the building housed the White Squirrel Shop, Frame Up, an arts and crafts and frame shop, and Jack Williams Shoe Shop. Today, in 2024, only one of those still remains. Also, in 1994, upstairs, in addition to Judge Gash's office, existed the offices of Eckert Realty, Cocoon Interior Design, and a suite of offices undergoing renovation for a new tenant. I wonder who that could have been. Not sure, but I wonder if I can get up there. Regardless, the building's critical position on the square in the county seat has always made it a desirable location for a shop or an office. But am I able to get up there, though? Not sure yet, but We'll find out soon enough. That's because the time has now come for an architectural investigation. Yes, this is going to be thorough. As such, it will act as the second part of this episode. Now, I have not many, but only a few interior shots. If I can't get inside to see what needs to be seen, then those photos will have to do. But just keep in mind, if that is the case, they may not always exactly represent what is being discussed. You know how it is. So let's get this thing moving. Overall, the McMinn building, it is a two-story, common bond brick commercial building. It is ornamented with robust decorative brickwork, and it is located right here at the north corner of the square in Brevard. It is positioned at the crossing of Broad and Main Streets, the town's two principal avenues. And it is positioned across from the Transylvania County Courthouse, making it an important landmark in the county seat's small commercial district of mostly 2 and 3 story buildings. The McMinn building, it was built for mixed commercial use, and it did usher in a late 19th and 20th century building boom in what was prior not much more than a sleepy kind of county seat. Clearly, this here, the West Main Street facade, with its original Mesker Brothers iron storefronts, was seen as the principal elevation. These impressive frontispieces always offered Brevard merchants a fashionable setting from which to sell their goods. Here you can see the entrances into the 3 storefronts. There is, however, this fourth doorway, positioned between these two entrances here, and it opens into a stairway which rises to the second story of the building. There, a series of 18 rental offices can be found, all arranged off a U shaped public corridor. In use for 95 years as a rental commercial building, the McMinn Building, it is remarkably intact and well preserved. Except for some alterations at this here corner storefront and some expected changes to the interiors of the first story stores, this is a building that survives to the present as it had been built, as an impressive turn of the century commercial building. Yes, that does still appear to hold true today in 2024. Those expected changes to the first story interiors, though, those were 30 years ago. The building, it holds two distinct elevations that face the town's two principal streets. As such, the rectangular brick building holds a descending hierarchy of finish. There is the principal corbelled brickwork of the Main Street face, through a somewhat simpler finish on its side elevation that faces Broad Street, to a plain utilitarian appearance at the rear that faces a small vacant parking lot at the lot's tail end. Yes, this parking lot, it is serviced by an alley. Now, back to the front corner. In typical turn of the century fashion, this front corner, it is clipped to address the town square. Here we have this angled bay, and it contains the entrance to the corner store on the first level. Also, here you can find a pair of windows in an arch-headed opening on the second story. Now, this bay, yes, it does serve as a kind of transition point between the consistent finish of the facade that faces West Main Street and the simpler but diminishing finish of the side elevation that faces North Broad Street. This here is an early, not very early, but early enough, photo of the McMinn building. Not sure of what year, but judging by the cars, probably like, I don't know, the 1930s or 40s. The first story West Main Street elevation. It contains 3 storefronts. It holds a doorway set within its own bay that opens onto a stair that rises to the rental offices on the second level. Here, though, you can find brick pilasters that rise through the second-story elevations. And those pilasters, they define the unequal widths of those 4 components of the building. At some point prior to 1994, likely not all that long prior to that year, the Mesker Brothers iron storefront that frames the corner store, it was replaced by this present simple treatment using plain modern materials in an undistinguished fashion. The entry here has plate glass doors opening into the store. Large display windows can also be found here, which are protected by this canvas awning. Okay, so some of that might be true. I mean, these are definitely huge plate glass windows with what is probably more modern materials. These here, these trims and stuff, definitely. However, I don't know if I'd call this door a plate glass door. I think it's a metal door. No, I think that's a wooden door. I think, regardless, that door is somewhat newer. It certainly looks a little bit newer, and this here, it does look like the Mesker Brothers frame. So some of that stuff has either been replaced or only portions of that description still hold up. Next, we must move west. Here, a pair of brick piers frame the recessed doorway. In that doorway, it opens onto a public stair to the second story. Could this be that stair? Not sure, but the 2 leaves of this original door feature 4 molded square panels set below large glazed panes. Yes, this here must be that door. The thing is, though, I would not call this a door in the west elevation. I mean, it's on the West Main Street, but this is not exactly west, more like south. Technically, it's southwest, but this building has 4 sides. And a single pane transom does carry across this orifice. Then there is this modern metal panel set above the metal awning, and it protects this doorway, carrying the slogan of McMinn Building and the name of an architectural firm which reportedly, once upon a time, occupied offices in this building. Not sure if I actually got that footage. At first, I was confused by where the west elevation was. Technically, it is attached to another building. However, I found out a bit later what was being referred to as that door on the west leading to a public stair. That was in fact on the south elevation. If I did not get the awning or that architectural description, oopsie. Anyhow, the storefront here, it is framed between brick piers and appears to date from at least 2 periods. The recessed central entrance is comprised of paired but mostly glazed wooden doors below a 2 pane transom, and it is flanked by plate glass display windows set on a brick apron. A 5 part multi-pane glazed transom, believed to be original, carries across the storefront below the original Mesker Brothers iron frieze. And its classical composition features alternating triglyphs and panels embossed with swags and ribbons. Moving now to this storefront here, it appears to be entirely original to the 1899 construction of the building. Really? Wow. So here, the classical frieze is supported by a wide pilaster at its west end. Second pilasters can also be found here, framing the store's recessed central entrance. The west pilaster has decorative elements at its base and at its capital. It bears a plate stamped with, well, you can read all that. I'm not. The original glass display windows, they rest on a shallow paneled apron, and they are surmounted by unusually tall two-pane transoms, and the double-leaf door that opens into the store here, it is said to also be original, and it appears to be identical to the one that opens onto the staircase. And yes, reportedly, it does retain its original hardware. Well, it did in 1994. What about now in 2024? The four principal bays here on the second elevation, they are marked by pilasters and are recessed just about the width of a brick behind the building's corbelled parapet cornice. The window openings here, they have granite sills and arched heads. Furthermore, they contain 1/1 sash. Above the easternmost two bays, you can find single window openings. However, in the bays of these two stores, you can find three windows symmetrically placed. The top of the parapet cornice, it is covered with, reportedly, a later ceramic tile coping. Okay, so yeah, two windows right there in the first two bays. Then there's three windows in each of these two bays. So that does add up to eight. It was a bit confusing earlier with how this was being described. Anyhow, yes, above that coping you can find these two stove flues. Moving now to the southeast elevation, the one that faces Broad Street. So here, the wall is divided into four bays, all marked by pilasters which appear to contain stove flues. Hey, look, that last pilaster, the stove flue thingy on the corner there. Was there ever a flue there, or did it fall off at some point in time? It kind of, sort of looks like it did, given the look of that. The top, though, nicely rounded off. Not sure. And yes, they do rise from the base of the building all the way up to the stepped roofline. And there, those flues, they project above the parapet and are joined by three additional flues, which rise in the walls. That, folks, is what I call an influenza. The pattern of the door and window openings here, it is inconsistent in these four bays. You see, in addition to the display windows in the southernmost bay, there were reportedly originally three single window below multi-pane transoms and a door in the remaining three bays of the first story. Now, is that true? I don't know. Well, I think I do know, and the answer is no. Firstly, there does not appear to be three of these windows. Yes, there are two of them, and yes, they are kind of long single panes with transoms at the top. So, yes, that's correct, but there is no third one. Now, there is this transom over here, so was there once a window here? And was it replaced by a door? But then, apparently, there were also more than one door, like two doors, three doors here. So, yeah, things are not exactly adding up over here. Then we have this door. Why is this even here? I mean, it's a double leaf door. Just maybe the document will talk about it. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but it's a double leaf door that opens onto, well, I wouldn't want to walk out unless you're willing to jump. I mean, you can jump, it's not that far. But here is a very, very old photo. I think the Broad Street elevation is largely cut off, though. Oops. Okay, well, the northernmost window, it was reportedly later converted to a door that opens into a shallow stoop, which rises from the sidewalk. The original doorway in this northernmost bay, it is fitted with its original two-leaf door set below a transom. Oh, wait a minute. I think I got the wrong door. Two-leaf door. No, that's not two leaves. Yes, it does open onto a stoop that rises from the sidewalk. That's true, but I think they might be referring to this door here. It has its two leaves, and it is set below a transom. Now, that's more like a transom you would find above a door. But then there is, on this door here, a kind of transom that was once set below a window, which is why I thought they might be talking about this door. Yet, somehow, I don't think so. No, they're talking about this door. And I imagine then the stoop, it was removed, but yet there is a stoop over here. What is going on here? Not sure, but the lower half of each leaf is fitted with three panels, while the upper half is glazed. Now, we must move back to the rear elevation. It does hold a simple utilitarian appearance. However, here you can find this one-story service porch strapped across the full elevation. Much of this paragraph, however, I am going to have to omit. I did not get some of the footage that is needed for this paragraph. And secondly, some of the features here seem to be either altered or not visible outright. Therefore, we're just going to skip to the following paragraph and not talk so much about the rear elevation. The interior finishes of the three first-story stores are said to vary in their appearance and retention of their original fabric. The interior of this store once had a carpeted floor. Really? That looks like hardwood flooring to me. And are those painted walls? I guess they could be. Does it still hold a dropped ceiling of sheetboard panels with battens over the seams? It's a bit hard to tell, but those could be sheetboard panels up there. How about the open shelving with adjustable shelves carrying along the northwest side wall from the front area for about two-thirds of the length of the wall? Yeah, I would not call this stuff here adjustable shelving. It appears likely, then, this store has, on the inside, been heavily remodeled since 1994. But once upon a time, that shelving, it had tongue-and-groove backing and drawers at the base of the shelf units. Overall, it appears to date from the early 20th century. In the offset, wherever that might be, where the enclosed public stair reportedly rises to the second story, there is said to exist a door which opens onto a closet under the stair. That I did not seem to locate. There is definitely a closed off partition back here. It may even today be a restroom area. I suspect that offset may be near here, not sure. Furthermore, the front two-thirds of the store was at one time partitioned off as the main sales space of one or more previous tenants. Today, the whole space appears to be a sales or gallery space. Moving now to the rear. So, the two doors and windows at the rear of the store are said to retain their original surrounds, all of which are symmetrically molded and hold corner blocks. Not sure if I see those. Maybe they're behind that door there. Not sure. What's back there? Furthermore, there is said to exist an enclosed stair that leads to the basement. Wow, more enclosed stair stuff, but a basement? I wonder what might be lurking down there. Not sure, but it has also been reported that a small lavatory has also been enclosed somewhere at the back of the store. Yep, talked about that just before. Moving now to this store here. It is said to now house a frame and art shop set in one large space with a recent simple partition that separates the front sales area from the work area and the back half of the store. Yes, there is still a separation back here. The store space holds a narrow oak flooring that runs from front to back. There are painted plaster walls rising above the baseboards, and the pressed tin ceiling is said to be original. So, has anything changed since 1994? Well, some, if not even most, of that does appear to hold up. However, we're not exactly done yet. So, the design of the ceiling, it features square molded panels and raised perimeter frames. The cornice is embossed with anthemions. Sorry, did not venture back into that rear separation to see, but the store is also said to retain its original symmetrically molded window and door surrounds, all or most holding corner blocks. Yet again, a lavatory is said to be enclosed, this one being in the north rear corner with a tongue and groove ceiling, possibly behind that wall there, not sure. Sorry, didn't go restroom hunting this time. By the way, this here is a 1992 photo of that tin ceiling. Moving lastly to this store here, reportedly its interior is said to hold pine flooring that runs from front to back. Plaster walls can also be found, though here with some modern sheet paneling. Not sure if I see that sheet paneling today in 2024, though. Also, a dropped ceiling of sheet board can be found. This one is now used as a shoe shop. Well, it was in 1994. What is it now? And what does the rear third of this store feature? Well, folks, it features this mezzanine with this photo from 1992, which is said to be original to this space. So then, no, I guess this is not that staircase describing this region discussed earlier in this episode. Nonetheless, it is illuminated by, I guess, what is barely shown here behind the curtain, a pair of shallow windows on the rear elevation. I guess that's those up there. Overall, though, the store is said to have been used as a department store, with the mezzanine up there possibly having been used for the ladies' department. Now, the existence of this mezzanine up there in this space does raise the distinct possibility that McMinn varied the interior finish and design of likely all three stores to satisfy different types of use. The mezzanine, it is supported by chamfered posts. The sills of its floor have exposed beaded edges. Hardwood floors, yes. Not sure if I see those beaded sills, though. Anyhow, back now to the main level. There you can find open shelving on the northwest wall, as well as an enclosed lavatory set below the mezzanine. At the rear of the store, you will find that The door and windows retain their symmetrically molded surrounds, again holding corner blocks. As usual, some stuff appears to have changed. Can't really access the far rear to see the rear orifices. Lavatory, yes, likely, but open shelving? Open, yes, but shelving? I guess it depends on how you want to define that. Up next, there is a discussion of the basement. Sorry, I have no idea how to access the basement. I didn't even know the store had one. However, it is reported that the entrance into the basement is fitted with a 5-panel turn of the century door. It is enclosed with a tongue and groove ceiling, and it is set below the stair, a stair which rises front to back up to the mezzanine. The railing, it features turned members set below, a molded top handrail which carries between square newels. This railing, it guards the stairwell on the mezzanine level, and it carries across the open southwest front of the mezzanine. So, the public stairs, located behind paired doors between the entrances to these two stores, rise to the northeast to the second story rental offices. A freehand plan of the second story is included with this nomination. Oh, really? The copy I have does not hold such a drawing. Oh well. If it did, I'd show it to you. Anyhow, except for the installation of lighting fixtures over the years and the enclosure of a part of the U shaped hall, little has changed in the fabric and appearance of the hall and the offices since 1898. The second story stairhead is protected by two lengths of handsome railing featuring turned members below molded top handrails and turned newels topped with molded ball finials. The pine flooring, it is laid on the diagonal, a simple device which enlivens the public hall. The sheathed wainscot carrying between the baseboard and chair rail, it features flush molded edge boards, also nailed on the diagonal. The walls above the wainscot and those in all of the offices are plaster on lath. In most offices, the original tongue and groove ceiling has been covered by Celotex panels or dropped ceilings. The door and window surrounds throughout the hall, and offices are symmetrically molded with corner blocks. The wainscot end surrounds in the hall hold a dark stained finish. Those in the offices have been mostly painted by the occupants. The majority of the doors opening from the hall into the offices feature 3 panels in their lower half with a large glazed pane above. Some of the offices hold solid wood 5-panel doors. All of the 18 office doors, they have top hinged glazed transoms. In plan, 14 of the 18 offices are arranged in a U-shaped plan along the northwest, southwest, and southeast sides of the building. Nearly all of these offices open onto the U-shaped corridor and communicate with their adjoining offices via 5-panel doors. The remaining 4 offices are arranged in a tier inside the U. They are reported to hold windows onto an open well that are visible on the exterior of the building. I guess in 1994, 5 of the 6 offices situated along the southeast, the Broad Street side, have been leased to an architectural firm. That particular space is said to have closed off via glazing that portion of the public hall that adjoins 4 of their 5 leased rooms. So, folks, tell me, is that still true? Is that space still closed off? What we have here is a 1992 photo of the corner office and the adjoining office, this one here, number 7, were long occupied by attorney Robert Lenore Gash and later became the offices of his son, Judge Robert T. Gash. I have only this one interior shot of the corner office and none of 7. Sorry, did not get a peek inside, but maybe we can get a little peek. I don't know. Can you see anything? The walls inside there, though, are said to be painted green, and the woodwork is said to be a warm rose mocha, colors probably dating from the early 20th century. This room is said to also house a safe inscribed with R.L. Gash. A portion of the office in the back northwest corner has been enclosed for a public lavatory for the office occupants. Across the hall is a small enclosed service closet. Did not think to look for that. Oops. Don't know if that still holds true. Overall, the architectural context of this building is discussed here, and the historic and architectural resources of Transylvania County, North Carolina, including the incorporated towns of Brevard and Rossman, circa 1820 to 1941. In it, the building is discussed in Property Type 9, Commercial and Industrial Buildings. It is described as the oldest and finest commercial building in Brevard. Indeed, the McMinn building, it is significant as the oldest and finest commercial building in town. It is also significant in the architectural history of the county seat as an important early example of a mixed-use rental building with 3 storefronts on the first story and rental offices on the second. Furthermore, it is especially significant for the remarkable degree of integrity which it has retained to the present. On the first level, parts of 2 of the 3 original Mesker Brothers iron storefronts which faced Main Street do remain intact. However, the interiors of the stores have seen varying alterations. In each instance, as was previously discussed, important original or early fittings and furnishings do remain in place. That includes a pressed tin ceiling, shelves, and wall finishes. Some things, yes, but not all. Regarding shelves and whatnot, as said earlier, a few things do appear to have changed since 1994. Regardless, this is unusual in buildings which have been in constant use by a succession of tenants for 94 years. Well, that's 94 years prior to 1994. Today, in 2024, that's, wow, 124 years. Yikes. That's a long time. But then, on the second story, you will find that the plan and finish of the rental offices does remain intact to an altogether remarkable degree. There, only extremely minor alterations have done little to compromise the turn of the century office interiors. Their simple yet imposing presence and appearance are of broad importance, an honor shared by the just as remarkable second and third story interiors of the later Brinkley Hotel in Plymouth, North Carolina. The same economic factors which caused Nathan McMinn to prosper in the late 19th century, and that enabled him to build his new brick building in 1899, likewise did alter the appearance of Brevard in the final years of that century and into the opening decades of the 20th century. For 25 years, from its completion in 1873 until the construction of the McMinn Building in 1899, the Transylvania County Courthouse was the only known brick building here in Brevard. There may even exist evidence of that distinction holding true for the entire county, who knows? This courthouse, though, occupying the east corner of the square at this intersection, yes, it was once surrounded by frame stores, houses, churches, and other necessary buildings, which then lined the town's unpaved streets. Yep, believe it or not, this was what streets like this in town looked like prior to 1900. The arrival of the Hendersonville and Brevard Railroad in 1895, its successful reorganization as the Transylvania Railroad in 1897, and its eventual incorporation into the Southern Railway system, drove the means by which this dramatic evolution in the town's fortunes and appearance occurred. This and related economic factors are further discussed in this document, the name of which I have already read. You can read it again, because I'm not. However, in it, those economic factors, they are discussed in the second historic context, early industrialization, 1895 to 1916. The construction of the two-story McMinn building in 1899 was the first important step in the series of efforts that saw the frame stores and warehouses of the commercial district replaced with brick buildings. Furthermore, there was at the time a rise in the county seats, more imposing houses of its merchant and professional class, covered with stylish pebble dash or built-in brick. Within a few years, the courthouse and the McMinn building were joined by two additional brick buildings on the west and on the south corners of the square. The now much altered Picklesheimer block was built on the south corner across Main Street from the McMinn building. Circa 1904, John W. McMinn went on to erect a three-story brick building in which he operated as the Athelwold Hotel until his death in 1918. It was probably the most imposing commercial building erected in Brevard in the early 20th century. It featured a granite-trimmed corner entrance diagonally opposite the corner entrance to the McMinn building across the square. It also holds a well-finished but separate porch that sheltered the hotel's South Broad Street entrance. It also holds bracketed eaves. Furthermore, its most imposing feature might be the colonial revival-styled gambrel roof dormers that punctuate the roofline amid the more conventional hipped roof dormers. However, the roof has been reattached, rebuilt to look like the original. That, however, is beyond the scope of this particular episode. Unfortunately, the loss of the hotel entrance porch and the alteration of other elements of its finish have sadly compromised the building. Within this trio of turn-of-the-century commercial buildings on the square, and within the larger context of the commercial center of Brevard, the McMinn building still to this day retains the presence of a historic building in a streetscape of contemporary and later buildings, which have mostly been altered to some degree. Its survival as an architectural landmark in the small city of Brevard can principally be attributed to two factors. The first is that it was seen as an important building in its day, and it has retained that distinction to the present. The second factor, assuring its survival, has been its continued ownership in four generations of the McMinn family, to whom it has been a source of income and pride. With the McMinn building now fully explored and thoroughly documented, its most inner secrets now revealed, the time has now come to move on. So, will I be covering anything else here in Brevard? You know, who knows? Only time will tell. Until we meet at our next destination, wherever that might be, this has been Fedora Bone.